stuff, I kind of have to look to physics with respect.
So what is the Big Bang basically?
It doesn't have to be per se the Big Bang, but I have to hand the explanation for the existence of the physical universe to physicists to some extent. And the reason I have to do that is because they've proven themselves time and time again so absolutely on point on so many things.
There's a number of competing models with each can be proved using maths, using various things. In terms of the actual science of it, if we understand what science is the experimentation. Science is the study of the natural world or the physical world using observation, experimentation, and repeatability.
Yeah.
Now.
Hypothesis.
Yeah. That's we make up. Yeah, exactly.
But I would say that grounds out very importantly in the ability. People think that the power of science and religion is to discuss how we came to be here. No. The test of the power is how well it can predict the future. That's a very different test.
Yeah.
And that's why I have to go with science.
Yeah, but
because science consistently, I use this example a lot. That plane up there, right now, the reason 300 people are risking their lives and sitting on it is they know that science can predict the future of how well the metal will hold together, the aerodynamics, the electronics,
I think,
all of that stuff. They have fantastic confidence in, and rightly so.
Yeah.
And science predicts that future consistently again and again in a way that no other form, including religion, does.
Yeah.
And therefore, as a logical person,
I disagree with that. There's a few points you made, so I'm going to try and adjust them. With regards to that, the physics, how the plane works, how we get medicine, these things are, this is actual hardcore science. This is real science. We can test this. This is not speculative science, where we can postulate on what happened 13 billion years ago, 13.7 billion years ago. That's speculative science.
No, but I'm saying the test of its validity is not how well it explains the past, but how well its model of the universe projects into the future.
Yeah,
and it's doing it all around right now.
But the Big Bang happened in the past.
I know.
And we're talking about how we came into existence.
I know, but if someone puts forward a theory X and I go, show me how powerful it is.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go biblical. You know Moses with the thing, Moses and they threw down the serpent, he did competition with the thing, okay?
Yeah, the stick.
What they did there was they went, okay, two competing ideologies, who's got the most powerful magic?
Yeah.
Now when I run that test between science and religion, when it comes to predicting the physical phenomenon in the universe, I find science wins hands down.
I think you've completely misunderstood the whole thing. This question on is there a creator or not, is that a scientific question? It's not a scientific question, that's the whole point. It's not even a scientific question. So
the question is, where did the physical universe come from?
It's not. That's a philosophical question. So science is the study of the physical world, how the physical world operates.
Yeah.
Okay. Now there's certain assumptions within the scientific method that the universe exists, is that we can observe it, and that we can make, and it follows a rational order that we can explain and make hypotheses and make explain observations to each other.
There is a rational order to the material.
So if you're saying that everything can be answered by science and broken down by science,
I'm not saying that.
No. Hear what I'm saying. That's called scientism. And that would be basically trying to explain everything using science. So, no. But hear my logic. So, if I was to say to you, why someone very special in your life made you a cake, why did they make you a cake? How would you explain that? I can say they made you a cake because they loved you. Okay. How would you explain that? Why they made you a cake using science? You looking at the cake, we can analyze it biologically. We can analyze the chemistry. We can analyze the physics and stuff. But would we ever get to the reason why or what agent created it? We wouldn't get to that conclusion. And I don't think there's two. I don't think they're contradictory.
You need to hear me on this point.
No. Let me just finish my point. Because I can explain how this cake came about using all of the sciences, the chemistry, the physics, the biology. But that does not negate that there's a rational agent behind it. So when we can explain, I can explain how the things work. The seasons, the photosynthesis in the plants and stuff like that, it does not negate that there is a rational agent. And if you was to go with the Big Bang model itself, that all matter came into existence 13.7 billion years ago, and what they postulate as to what could have been the cause for this, gravity or certain forces. Now, by definition, these forces would be outside the physical world. which
No, that's an assumption now on your part.
no.
Not all scientists would agree with that.
No. So how would you explain? So how would you?
Because
You
how did you
agree
come
with
to the
me on that?
conclusion
They don't
that,
have to
that
be
there is an
outside.
outside?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be outside.
You've gone outside.
No. Oh, this is not me, by the way. This is not my problem.
Yeah.
This is
It's
amongst
not outside.
scientists.
You just expressed it in a way.
No.
that
It's been recorded. It's been recorded. Yeah. I said that they have a number of ways to explain this, and one of the ways they explain it is by saying that there was physical laws that pre-existed. So there's certain prominent scientists and cosmologists that say this. So people like Lawrence Krauss and stuff.
I know, but it's a very, very fine point. What you mean by pre-existing?
I'm not saying this. This is not my argument. I'm just simply highlighting that, okay, amongst certain scientists, and I did mention certain earlier, not all, amongst certain scientists, they would still have to escape, they would still have to fall into what they're escaping. They're still falling into something which by definition is supernatural. Because you're...
No.
No. You understand what I'm saying?
I am understanding. You're assuming I'm not.
Yeah, I know. By saying that the physical world began 13.7 billion years ago, and the causation for that was the laws of gravity and certain physical laws.
It never began.
This, I'm telling you, Lawrence Krauss.
always existed.
Lawrence Krauss. I'll give you an example by name of a
I know
person.
there are some, but I'm not one of them.
That's
I'm
fine.
not here
That's
to
fine.
defend
That's
people
fine.
I'm not.
That's
I have a
fine.
position.
That's fine. That's fine. So what I'm saying is that just understand this world. We were not there to observe it, were we? Okay. So we can only. The science we can do is speculative science. It's not the same science as how the plane flies or how the medicine comes. This is speculative science.
You know, everything that you were saying, what I was going to say to you was the example you gave with the cake and someone giving it in love. Great example. I've used it myself to show the limitations of objective knowledge, and empirical science. You're right, the inner world of emotion, feeling and so on is to an extent off limits to science, But I picked very clearly the example for the minute, to keep it simple, of matter and energy, objects and the laws of motion and physics, and I used the plane. And what I'm saying is the question, how did the universe come into being, is not a phenomenological question necessarily. We can limit it for now to matter and energy, and clearly science has proven itself to have a mastery of that understanding, which is tested by its ability to predict the future of atoms and molecules in a way that no other art form does. So I have to give it some due credence with reluctance.
I don't think that I don't think your conclusion follows.
I'm only doing matter and energy right now. I don't want to bring in moral criteria or the important stuff.
These are all things. These are all things. Any rational kind of problem with God or any moral problem with God that anybody may put forward, you're using your reason and you're using moral things. Now,
I'm not using moral for the minute. I'm trying to just.
That's fine. I'm okay. Let me just go back to your previous point. So with regards to you saying that because it works on the airplane and because it works in medicine, for example, that therefore we can now the same group of people that are saying this about the airplane they might rely on that. In another area, they're talking about something with a lesser type of evidence about something that happened 13.7 million years ago, which is more speculative science. This is not the same science.
Okay, there I think you've misconstrued their position. The statements they're making about how matter will behave in the future is based on their understanding of coherently explaining how it's behaved in the past. It's a continuum of understanding built on some very simple axioms, which reduces down to actually three equations, possibly two. And within the fairly near future, they'll almost certainly have one equation, which will then explain to you with powerful predictive abilities how matter and energy are going to interact and move in the future. And when they do that, we'll be left with a fascinating position where we'll all be going, but we've still got to work out how to live together. Because not the whole of the universe is about matter and energy. There's a whole moral, meaning, emotional dimension which religion engages with.
What in that takes you away from that natural inference of a creator? I don't understand. Why would there be a barrier to that?
Because it seems within their discipline that there are now models and arguments you can make that don't require external design, despite the fact that your statement that initially when you look at the world you think there is intelligent design is a totally reasonable reaction.
But
over time that starts to look less and less coherent, unfortunately.
I don't think that's the case. I think what it is that we've got certain philosophical assumptions. Now, when you do science with a certain philosophical assumption that there is no such thing as anything outside of the physical world, pure materialism, only matter and energy exist. There is nothing outside of matter and energy. If that's your starting point, then you can never actually try and understand if there's any kind of supernatural.
That's not my position.
Okay, so we're open to the fact that there are things outside of matter and energy. Is that correct?
Yes, clearly.
Yeah, so we're open to that.
Yeah.
Okay, now how would we demonstrate something outside of matter and energy?
It will be far more difficult.
Could we use science?
To some extent, yeah.
No.
Okay, the thing we're talking about is the world of subjectivity. So far we've dealt with objects, yeah, which is matter and energy, objectively quantifiable. You can measure them, they're not a matter of interpretation or opinion, they're self-sustaining, yeah?
Yeah.
That's what science and physics studies. The complexity is when we start studying the world of subjects, which is what I am, and I'm guessing you are, yeah? Then we have an inner world. Now, I have inner truths, I have inner feelings, but you can't know what I'm feeling. So we're guessing each other's inner world.
Yeah.
But the profound human dilemma is how to live and how to deal with these emotions,
Okay,
ideas, and world.
let me go back to my question.
Now, it does seem
How
that
do we establish that, if you're open to the possibility of something other than matter existing, how would we establish that? I asked that earlier.
Well, okay, I already have because I know I am. So I know that I have an inner world which science can't see or prove. Yeah?
Okay, so
I start from a position of absolute knowledge that there is more than just matter and energy
Exactly.
because I'm an experiential thing.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
I'm guessing you are as well.
Exactly.
And I'll move forward from that.
Exactly.
But I can't help but notice when I was dealing with just matter and energy and objects,
Yeah.
it was kind of easy and we didn't get all blurred.
Yeah.
And objectively, I noticed that the world of objects has a causal effect on me as a subject.
Yeah.
I got anaesthetized 3 days ago. All of my emotions and feelings, you'd be amazed how much you chuck an object in me and it will change my experience.
Yeah.
Seems to be, unfortunately, a causal relationship between matter and my psychology and emotions.
Yeah.
Now, although I feel like I'm a free-floating spirit in here, the evidence suggests that it's not quite that simple. The neurology of what creates me. I'm more mechanistic than I'd like to believe I am, but I don't want to fly from that unpleasant reality. I want to integrate.
So we're not. So our starting point is that we live in a physical world, a material world. Okay. So we're not going to go to one extreme and deny any kind of material causes, and we're not going to go to the other extreme and say that only matter exists.
No, I'm not exactly good on the same
Yeah.
page.
So this is our starting point. So now for us to look at science, and which is only the study of the physical world.
Well, if it's studying the physical world and neurology affects psychology, then it's studying the mechanism of a thing which has a causal effect. It's like studying a piano's effect on music, yeah?
Yeah.
The music is not the piano, yeah? The music is a thing we like and has creation, synthesis and a whole load of ethereal properties, but it's caused by a piano, and in studying the function of the piano, you can tune it out. So there's a relationship here between the piano, which is a metaphor here for objectivity, and music, which I'm using as a metaphor for subjectivity.
I think that's a very good example. That's a very good example because this was the actual motivation for the Muslims in Baghdad, for example. They would study and engage in science to see how the universe works and to study the handiwork of God. This was it. So I don't think that there's actually a clash of heads. For example, when Newton wrote his famous book on laws of physics, at the end of it he says, and now we can understand, and I wrote this book so now that we can understand how God operates, how God works. So I don't think there's a clash. I can explain the cake using chemistry, physics, biology, but that doesn't show me why it was made, or it doesn't negate that a knowledgeable agent made it.
You're right.
So by using your piano example, we can study the piano, we can study what comes from it, but why is this music appealing to some people and that is not appealing? What makes all these things are immaterial? Yeah, exactly. So, but then going back earlier to say that because we can trust the aeroplane and how the aeroplane works, that therefore when another aspect of science, remember the physics, the biology and the chemistry is not the same as cosmology or these kind of this is basically getting into metaphysics.
Cosmology is not metaphysics, it's physics.
Okay, but it's getting into metaphysics. That's what I mean.
No.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Let me explain why.
There's no scientist who would say that.
They might not say it, and I'm not. That's the thing. I'm not blind following whatever. Not everything a scientist says is true, is it?
Agreed.
And not everything that a science says is science, is it? A science may hold an opinion that's not necessarily science.
Then it's bad science.
Exactly. Okay, so what we need to distinguish is what is the hardcore science, i.e. the observation, experimentation, repeatability, and what are the statements of scientists. Once we distinguish that, we're now not blind followers of, because scientists say it, we believe it. Bring forth your evidence. What is the actual proof you're bringing? Now, if you're bringing speculative you're speculating on how to explain something, I can explain how the cake came around using purely material means, without any knowledgeable agent. A cake's made, 'cause going back to our example, a cake is made. I can explain how it came about with eliminating my aunt. My aunt had no input in it. I can explain it only materialistically. Is that possible?
I don't think so.
You can say, for example, you can come up with any kind of wild theory.
How would your cake, I'm now playing devil's advocate in your position,
Yeah.
how would you explain the existence of a cake without human design?
Yeah, you could. If your starting point is that there is, yeah. If your starting point, yeah, as in wedding cake. Yeah.
How would you explain the existence of a wedding cake without human design?
Yeah, if I wanted to, yeah, my starting point is that there was no knowledgeable input in that. That's my religious belief, for example. I have a religious belief that no human had an input in this cake. Could I explain it if I wanted to?
Yeah, I've been waiting. Can you?
No. Is it possible?
No, I don't think so.
No, it is possible. You can make up any explanation.
You can make a good explanation.
Yeah, but you can make an
crap one,
explanation. I can explain a book coming about by a tree falling and
a lot of ink happened to fall.
exactly.
Okay,
Yeah, you can do that if you wanted to.
But in terms of the probability, we're weighing how
Exactly.
cogent an argument is.
Exactly. You're actually arguing for my case.
I know.
We're looking
I
at it.
know.
Yeah. So this is the point. I can explain it using mental gymnastics and jumping through hoops and invoking certain laws that.
You want to do Occam's razor, except it does seem that what's come out of science is an understanding that the laws of physics can self-generate. Incredible though that seems to be.
Okay. So who's told you this?
Feynman, the Nobel Prize winning physicist.
And how did they? So they've got a Nobel Prize, okay?
Yeah.
Does that mean whatever they say is true? It doesn't.
But
Okay.
on the
So
other
what was?
hand, it means I probably shouldn't just ignore them. And
You-
as long as
okay,
they're
that's fine,
accurately
that's fine.
predicting the future, I'll keep listening.
So what evidence did they give you that this was the model? That this was the actual way that it came about? How did they explain that it came about from what? What was the explanation? The laws of physics came into existence. How did they? You're postulating that in this debate. And you're not a blind follower. You're not just blind following them.
No, I'm not.
So you must understand the evidence that they have as to why they put this forward, because you're now putting it forward. So I'm going to ask you, what was their evidence that you've understood from them as to how these laws just popped into existence?
Now it unfortunately has to be metaphysics. Now we do have to
Hang
be
on.
metaphysics.
No. Sorry. That's not science, is it?
No, it's not.
Okay, so stick to the science, be consistent, and let's.
Well, okay, the scientific view would be it just is that way because it kind of has to go metaphysics. Let me see if you'll accept my.
I won't expect no metaphysics. Sorry, this is the discussion now. We're working on your
Okay, well, they're
parameters.
just saying the maths works, therefore accept it. Because
So the
maths
maths,
works.
the
The
perfect,
maths works.
excellent.
Okay?
So now let me give
And
you.
it really, really does. I mean, it really works. It's terrifying.
Yeah,
how
yeah.
much it works.
Yeah,
I'm
hang on,
not
hang on.
also assuming,
Let me-
1 minute, we're having a discussion where I'm not assuming necessarily that the Big Bang in the sense that there was nothing, then there was a Big Bang. There's a number of different models
That's,
here.
and
One of which could be
yeah,
a
exactly.
pulsing heart.
I mentioned some earlier, and you kind of shot me down on it. So I don't know what. Yeah, you shot me when I mentioned
I
Lawrence.
think you debate well.
Yeah, when I mentioned Lawrence Krauss's point, you kind of shot me down on that, and I said this is a number of competing models.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you kind of shot me down on that one, but now
Sorry,
you're
I wasn't
invoking
trying
it,
to shoot you.
and you're invoking it now, which is a bit inconsistent. You're a good man. I understand you've got you're a good sparring partner. Put it that way. So I understand we've got a common ground that we can work with. But again, how did they explain that to you? What was their belief?
Their discipline requires only that they say, we have the maths works.
Okay.
It's not our job to contextualize the maths.
That's fine.
What we're handing you is the microchip, the laser,
That's fine.
the power to fly.
That's
it
fine.
Works, and you guys work out what you think it means.
That's fine. I mentioned earlier that I accept the hardcore science.
Okay.
The hardcore science. As for speculative science, that could be based upon material assumptions or philosophical assumptions, I'm not actually bound to accept that. Not everything a scientist says is science. Some of it is a lot of philosophy. Okay? So I'm going back. Interesting. I'm going to come to the mathematics. Now this is absolutely they've proved it using mathematics. Okay. Now this power of proof using mathematics, I'm going to question that. But before I do that, I want to know, what have you understood from their mathematics? What is in their mathematics that allows you to do that? Have you just repeated the word mathematics?
No. The fact, as I said, the fact that maths can predict the future and make things work, and it's entirely self-consistent. except unfortunately it totally defies common sense. The deeper you go into science, particularly quantum physics, the more you discover, and this is where we have to, I think, touch on metaphysics, if you don't mind.
No. I wanted to do it earlier.
Okay,
you shut me down.
It's a matter of when we bring
So
it
let's
in,
go back
okay?
to it.
Because I, like I guess you, are interested in understanding what does this bloody maths mean?
Yeah.
A lot of scientists go, our discipline doesn't require that we give an explanation.